I never thought a coffee order would change my life, but there I was, standing behind Marcus Chen in the Starbucks line on a Tuesday morning, watching him fumble with his phone while trying to count exact change, and something in my chest just shifted. He had this way of apologizing to the barista that was so genuinely concerned about inconveniencing her, even though she was clearly having a better morning than he was. His messenger bag was coming apart at the seam. There was a coffee stain on his blue button-down that he kept trying to hide with his jacket, and when he finally looked back and caught me watching him, he gave me this embarrassed smile that made my knees weak. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of slowly, carefully, terrifyingly falling for someone I worked with. Well, not directly with. Marcus was in the design department on the 4th floor, and I was in marketing on 7. Different worlds in the same building. But after that morning, I started noticing him everywhere. In the elevator, at the vending machines. Always with that slightly worried expression, like he was carrying the weight of deadlines and expectations that were just a little too heavy. I'm not the kind of guy who makes the first move. I never have been. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, being gay wasn't something you advertised. Even after moving to Seattle 5 years ago, even after coming out to my family and most of my friends, there was still this hesitation in me, this voice that said, wait, make sure, don't risk it. But something about Marcus made me want to be braver. So I started showing up at that Starbucks at the same time, started making sure I was in the elevator when he usually took his lunch break, started finding excuses to walk past the design department. It took 3 weeks before I finally worked up the courage to actually talk to him, not just a polite nod or a comment about the weather, but an actual conversation. It happened in the break room. He was microwaving something that smelled vaguely like pad thai, and I was refilling my water bottle for the 3rd time that afternoon, because apparently anxiety makes me incredibly thirsty. The microwave beeped, and he reached for his food, and somehow in the choreography of breakroom navigation, we ended up standing way too close to each other. Sorry, he said automatically, and I noticed his eyes were this incredible warm brown like honey in sunlight. No, you're fine, I said, and then because my brain apparently decided to stop filtering, I added, I've seen you around. I'm Alex, marketing department. Marcus, he said and shook my hand. His grip was warm and firm and he held on just a second longer than necessary. Design, I've seen you around too. Those 5 words, I've seen you around too. I replayed them in my head for the rest of the day, analysing every possible meaning. Had he noticed me the same way I'd noticed him? Or was it just a polite acknowledgement that yes, we worked in the same building? We started having lunch together after that. Not every day at first, just occasionally, accidentally on purpose running into each other in the break room or the cafeteria. He told me about growing up in Portland, about his family's expectations that he'd take over their restaurant business, about his decision to pursue design instead. I told him about Ohio, about coming out to my parents 2 years ago, about how my mum still sent me care packages with Bible verses tucked into the homemade cookies. Does that bother you? Marcus asked one day. We were sitting in the small park across from our office building, eating sandwiches and watching pigeons fight over a dropped French fry. The Bible verses or the cookies, I tried to joke, but he gave me this look that said he knew I was deflecting. That she's still trying to change your mind. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Sometimes, I admitted, but I think she includes them because she doesn't know what else to do. She loves me. She's just confused about how those two things fit together. Marcus nodded slowly. My parents didn't talk to me for 6 months after I came out. My dad especially. He'd built all these plans around me taking over the restaurant, and I think in his mind, being gay meant I was rejecting everything he'd worked for. But they came around. Eventually, my little sister basically staged an intervention, told them they could either have a son or they could have their pride, but they couldn't have both. He smiled at the memory. She's fierce. You'd like her. The idea that I might meet his sister someday, that I might become part of his life in that way, made my heart race. We were still just friends then, just 2 guys having lunch, talking about our families and our jobs and the terrible coffee in the office. But there was something building between us, something that felt inevitable and terrifying in equal measure. I think I knew I was in love with him the day he stayed late to help me finish a presentation. I'd been assigned this huge pitch to a potential client, and I'd completely underestimated how much work it would take. It was 8 p.m. on a Thursday, and I was still at my desk surrounded by crumpled paper and empty energy drink cans when Marcus appeared in my cubicle doorway. "You look like you're drowning," he said. "I'm fine," I lied, and then immediately contradicted myself by dropping my head into my hands. "I'm so screwed. This presentation is due tomorrow morning, and I still have 20 slides to finish." "What if you had visuals?" Marcus asked. "Like really good visuals, the kind that make people forget you're not a graphic designer." He pulled up a chair and spent the next 4 hours helping me. Not just creating graphics, but thinking through the entire flow of the presentation, suggesting better ways to organize the information, catching typos I'd missed. We ordered pizza, we drank terrible vending machine coffee, and somewhere around midnight, when we were both getting slap-happy from exhaustion, he said something that made me laugh so hard I snorted, and he looked at me with this expression of pure delight. "I like your laugh," he said. "It's genuine. Not like those polite office laughs people do." "You've been analysing my laugh?" I asked, and immediately felt my face heat up. "I've been analysing everything about you," he admitted, and suddenly the air in the cubicle felt charged with something electric. "Is that weird? That's probably weird. I should shut up." "It's not weird," I said quietly. "I've been doing the same thing." We stared at each other for a long moment. I could hear the hum of the building's ventilation system, the distant sound of a cleaning crew somewhere on another floor. Marcus's knee was touching mine under the desk, and neither of us moved to break the contact. "I should probably tell you," he said slowly, "that I have a pretty strict policy about not dating people I work with." My heart sank. "Oh, right, that makes sense. But I'm finding it really hard to remember why that policy exists right now." "Marcus, I'm saying this badly," he interrupted. "What I mean is, I like you, really like you, and I keep trying to talk myself out of it because of the whole co-worker thing, but it's not working." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the hope rising in my chest like a balloon. "I like you too," I managed. "So much that it's kind of embarrassing, actually." He laughed, and it was the best sound I'd ever heard. "So what do we do about this?" "We could be careful," I suggested. "Keep it quiet at work. See where it goes." "I'm not good at quiet," Marcus said. "I'm the kind of person who wants to hold hands in public and introduce you to my friends and post embarrassing couple photos on Instagram." "That sounds perfect," I told him honestly. "But maybe we can work up to the Instagram photos." He kissed me then, leaned across the small space between our chairs and kissed me soft and careful, like he was afraid I might disappear. I kissed him back, tangling my fingers in his hair, feeling 8 months of wanting and waiting and hoping finally crystallize into this perfect moment. We finished the presentation together. I gave the pitch the next morning on about 2 hours of sleep, and somehow it was the best presentation I'd ever done. The client signed on, my boss was thrilled. And through it all, I kept thinking about Marcus, about the way he'd looked at me in the cubicle, about the promise of something real and true and mine. We kept it quiet at first, like we'd agreed. Met for dinner at restaurants far from the office, spent weekends at his apartment or mine, learning each other's habits and quirks. He was a morning person who sang in the shower. I was a night owl who left coffee mugs everywhere. He was meticulous about doing dishes immediately. I had a tendency to let laundry pile up until I was down to my last clean shirt. Somehow, it worked. We worked. 3 months in, he met my parents. They came to Seattle for Thanksgiving, and I'd been agonizing about it for weeks. My mum knew I was seeing someone, but I hadn't told her much beyond that. Hadn't mentioned that Marcus was Chinese-American, that he was 2 years younger than me, that he made me laugh until my sides hurt and held me when I woke up from bad dreams. "Just be yourself," Marcus told me the night before they arrived. We were in my apartment and he was helping me stress clean even though the place was already spotless. "If they love you, they'll love the person who makes you happy." "You make me very happy," I said, pulling him close. "Embarrassingly happy. I smile at my phone when you text me. My co-workers have noticed." "Good," he said, kissing my forehead. "Let them notice." The dinner was awkward at first. My dad kept asking Marcus about design in this overly interested way that made it clear he had no idea what Marcus actually did. My mum was polite but reserved, and I could see her trying to reconcile the son she thought she knew with this new reality. But then Marcus started talking about his family's restaurant, and my dad perked up because he'd always loved cooking, and suddenly they were deep in a conversation about the best way to season a wok. My mum pulled me into the kitchen while we were cleaning up. "He's very nice," she said carefully. "He is," I agreed, waiting for the but. and he clearly cares about you. I can see it in the way he looks at you." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Mum, I'm trying," she said, and her voice cracked. "I'm really trying, Alex. I know I haven't been good at this. I know those Bible verses probably hurt more than they help, but I do love you, and I want you to be happy. And if Marcus makes you happy—" She trailed off, wiping her eyes. "He does," I said. "He really does." She hugged me then, tight and fierce, and whispered, "Then that's enough for me." Work got more complicated as we got more serious. We weren't hiding exactly, but we weren't advertising either. It was this weird middle ground where some people knew and others didn't, and we were never quite sure who was in which category. The company didn't have any policies against co-workers dating as long as there was no direct reporting relationship, but there was still this sense that we were breaking some unspoken rule. Then, 6 months into our relationship, everything changed. My boss called me into her office on a Wednesday afternoon. I thought maybe it was about the campaign I'd been working on, or possibly about the budget for next quarter. Instead, she offered me a promotion, Senior Marketing Director. It was everything I'd been working toward for years. Better title, better salary, actual influence over company strategy. "There's one catch," she said, and my stomach dropped. "The position is for our Los Angeles office. You'd need to relocate." Los Angeles, 2 hours by plane, a completely different life. I thought about my apartment in Seattle, about the coffee shop where Marcus and I had breakfast every Sunday, about the life we'd been building together. "Can I think about it?" I asked. "Of course. Take a week. But Alex, this is a real opportunity, the kind that doesn't come around often." I told Marcus that night. We were at his place, making dinner together in his tiny kitchen. He was chopping vegetables while I stirred pasta sauce, and everything felt so domestic and perfect that I almost couldn't bring myself to say the words. "They offered me a promotion today," I said finally. "That's amazing!" He turned to face me, knife still in hand, grinning. "You've been wanting this for so long. When do you start?" "It's in LA." The smile froze on his face. "Oh, I haven't said yes," I added quickly. "I told them I needed to think about it." He turned back to the cutting board, but his movements were mechanical now. "You should take it. It's a great opportunity. Marcus, I'm serious. This is your career. You've worked so hard for this." "What about us?" I asked, and my voice came out smaller than I intended. He was quiet for a long moment. We'd figure it out. People do long distance all the time. But I could hear the doubt in his voice, could see the tension in his shoulders. We both knew that long distance wasn't really an option. Not for something this new, this fragile. Not when we were still learning how to be together in the same city. I spent the next week in agony, made pro and con lists, talked to friends, lay awake at night staring at the ceiling while Marcus slept beside me, trying to imagine my life in Los Angeles. The career advancement would be incredible. The salary increase would let me finally pay off my student loans. I'd be working on national campaigns instead of regional ones, but I'd be doing it alone. Without Marcus's terrible jokes and his habit of stealing bites of my food and the way he'd text me random thoughts throughout the day. Without Sunday morning breakfasts and weeknight dinners and the slowly accumulating evidence that we were building something real. I met with my boss on Monday morning to give her my answer. She was clearly expecting me to say yes, had already pulled up housing listings in LA, had started talking about transition timelines and when I could start. "I appreciate the offer," I said. "Really I do, but I'm going to have to decline." She looked genuinely shocked. "Can I ask why?" I thought about lying, saying something about not wanting to leave Seattle, about having roots here, but I was tired of hiding, tired of treating the most important relationship in my life like it was something to be managed and concealed. "I'm in a relationship," I said, "with someone who's here, and I'm not willing to give that up right now. Alex, I understand that relationships are important, but this is your career." "I know," I interrupted gently, "and maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe I'll regret this, but I've spent most of my life playing it safe, making the practical choice, doing what I thought I was supposed to do, and for once, I want to choose something just because it makes me happy." She studied me for a long moment. "This person must be pretty special." "He is," I said, and felt a smile spread across my face. "He really is." I texted Marcus from the elevator, told him I had news and asked if he could meet me for lunch. He showed up at the park across from our building looking worried, and I realized he thought I was about to tell him I was leaving. I turned it down, I said as soon as he sat down. What? The promotion. I told them no. Alex, you can't. That's not. Why would you do that? Because, I said simply, I have a reason to stay. He stared at me. I can't be that reason. That's too much pressure. What if we don't work out? What if you end up resenting me? Then I'll deal with it, I said. But Marcus, I've spent my whole life making decisions based on fear. Fear of what other people would think, fear of making mistakes, fear of wanting too much, and I'm done with that. This thing between us, it's the first time I've felt like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm not giving that up for a job title. But your career will still be here. There will be other promotions, other opportunities, but there's only one you. I took his hand, not caring that we were in public, not caring who might see. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us, if you'll let me. His eyes were shining with tears. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything, he kissed me then, right there in the park at lunchtime with office workers walking past and pigeons pecking at sandwich crumbs around our feet. Kissed me like I'd just given him something precious and irreplaceable. I love you, he whispered against my lips. I should have said it before, but I was scared. And now you've done this incredibly romantic and slightly insane thing, and I love you. I love you too, I said, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. I think I've loved you since that first day at Starbucks when you apologized to the barista for taking too long, he laughed. That's such a weird thing to fall in love over. It was perfect, I insisted. You were perfect. You are perfect. I'm really not, he said, but he was smiling. I'm going to drive you crazy. I'm going to be too anxious about things that don't matter and too careless about things that do. I'm going to steal your hoodies and forget to buy groceries and wake you up early on weekends. Good, I said. I can't wait. We went back to work eventually, sat through afternoon meetings and answered emails and pretended to focus on our respective projects. But everything felt different now, lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until I set it down. That night, Marcus showed up at my apartment with Thai food and a bottle of wine. We ate on the couch, legs tangled together, talking about everything and nothing. About his sister's upcoming wedding and my parents' anniversary and whether we should adopt a cat. Normal, domestic, beautiful things. I need to tell you something, Marcus said eventually. He'd been quiet for a few minutes, and I could tell he was working up to something. Okay, I said, trying not to sound worried. When you told me about the promotion, I started looking at jobs in LA just in case, just to see if it would be possible for me to come with you. My heart stuttered. You did? I know we said we wouldn't do that, wouldn't make big life decisions based on each other this early, but I couldn't stand the thought of you leaving. And then I felt guilty because I didn't want to pressure you, and what if you needed to go and I was holding you back, and I kissed him to stop the spiral of anxiety. You weren't holding me back. You were giving me something to stay for. Still, he said, I want you to know that I would have come with you. If you'd needed to go, I would have figured it out. I know, I said softly, but I didn't need to go. I needed to stay here, with you, building this life we're creating. That's what I need. We fell asleep on the couch that night, the TV playing something neither of us was watching, wrapped around each other like we were afraid to let go. And maybe we were. Maybe that's what love is at the beginning, this fierce determination to hold on to something good, something real, something worth choosing over and over again. The next few months were the happiest of my life. We stopped hiding at work, started eating lunch together in the cafeteria where everyone could see, got invited to company happy hours as a couple, dealt with the occasional weird comment or inappropriate question, but mostly people were just happy for us. Turned out half the office had been speculating about whether we were together anyway. My career didn't suffer from turning down the promotion. If anything, my boss seemed to respect me more for making a choice based on my values instead of just ambition. 6 months later, a different opportunity came up. A lateral move to a new division that was more interesting work even if it wasn't a huge title bump. I took it, and Marcus and I celebrated with cheap champagne and expensive takeout. We moved in together a year after that first kiss in my cubicle. Found a little apartment with enough space for both of us to have home offices, walking distance from the park where we'd had so many important conversations. His sister helped us move, made fun of how many boxes of books I owned, cried when she saw how happy we were together. You chose right, she told me while Marcus was directing the movers. My brother, he's always been afraid of asking for too much, of wanting things too badly. But with you, He's different. Braver. He makes me braver too, I said. She smiled. That's how you know it's right. When you make each other into better versions of yourselves. I think about that conversation sometimes, about the choice I made to stay in Seattle, to choose love over career advancement, to be brave enough to want something and reach for it. People ask me if I regret it, if I wonder what might have been if I'd taken that promotion, and honestly, I don't, not even a little bit. Because here's what I've learned. There will always be another job, another promotion, another opportunity to advance your career. But there won't always be someone who makes you laugh until your stomach hurts, who knows how you take your coffee without asking, who stays up late helping you with presentations even though he has his own deadlines. There won't always be someone who sees all your fears and anxieties and chooses to love you anyway. Marcus is that person for me, and choosing to stay, choosing him, choosing us, that wasn't giving up on my dreams. It was finally figuring out what my dreams actually were. Not a corner office or an impressive title, but a life built with someone I love. Morning coffee and evening walks and lazy Sunday afternoons, inside jokes and shared history, and the accumulating evidence of a life lived together. We got engaged last month. Nothing fancy, just the two of us on a hiking trail we'd been meaning to try, and him pulling out a ring he'd been carrying for 3 weeks waiting for the perfect moment. I said yes before he even finished asking. Said yes to the life we're building, to the future we're choosing, to the brave and terrifying and wonderful adventure of loving someone completely. My mum sent us a card when we told her. Inside, along with her congratulations, was a new Bible verse. But this one was different. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. No commentary, no suggestions for prayer groups or conversion therapy. Just those words and her signature and a heart drawn in pen. Progress, I thought. We're all making progress. Sometimes at work I'll catch Marcus's eye across the cafeteria or in a meeting, and he'll give me this small smile that's just for me. And I'll think about that morning at Starbucks, about the choice I made to turn down LA, about all the small and large decisions that led us here. And I'll feel grateful. Grateful that I was brave enough to want this. Grateful that I chose love. Grateful for every single day I get to spend with this man who makes me laugh and drives me crazy, and loves me exactly as I am. That's the story. That's how a coffee order and a job offer and a moment of courage changed everything. How I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not chase after more, but recognize when you already have enough. When you have everything that matters. I have Marcus. I have love. I have a life that feels true and real and mine. And I wouldn't trade that for all the promotions in the world.